favorite ride has to be Peter Pan, actually.
Hey Bearcats! Welcome to the next episode of Bonita Interview series. I'm Serenity, and this week I had the pleasure of interviewing Mr. Yoder, who directs the 5 choirs here at Bonita. In this episode, we dive into his love of all things Disney. So the first question is, why do you love Disney?
I think a big reason why I love Disney, and probably a lot of people my age, I am a child of the 90s, which it was kind of known as what was called the Disney Renaissance. And so just a lot of like the really big movies, Disney made a really big resurgence. So like a lot of the movies that, probably a lot of my students like have seen on, streaming platforms or whatever it may be. Like I remember seeing them in the movie theaters. Like I think the first one I remember seeing was Mulan. But anyway, just the overall, essence of Disney has kind of always been this like wonderful, like fantasy like escape. And I think why everybody loves it so much is, when times are tough or even when times are good, like it's just nice to enjoy that kind of escapism and these great stories with great music and just lots of great messages in all of the movies and obviously the parks and all those kind of things.
So going back to the parks, since you like Disney so much, I'm sure you go to Disneyland a lot. So do you prefer California Adventure or Disneyland?
That's a tough question because I always say there's better there's things better about both.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I think just overall, probably I'd have to go with Disneyland just because it's the original and it has all that nostalgia and like also just like I'm dating myself a little bit, but like I remember when California Adventure like opened, so like for me there were years where there wasn't even a California Adventure, it was just a parking lot. So when I grew up going to Disneyland, like California didn't exist. So that's also another reason why I love California Adventure because it's like cool to have really seen it from the beginning, growing to where it's at. But I mean, if I had to pick one, it'd have to be Disneyland.
Is there a ride you really like or dislike at Disneyland and why?
Now that one's easy. My favorite ride has to be Peter Pan, actually. Like I love a thriller. I love doing the roller coasters and all that stuff. But I think for sure I'm always like if it's not too long of a line, because usually the line's pretty long, I always prioritize going on that. And mainly just because I think what I love most about the rides at Disneyland is like the overall experience, that it's like all encompasses you into the story and, obviously the classic movie and whatnot. And so I think Peter Pan, the ride, does a really good job of that, seeing all of London in that area, flying on the, pirate ship and all the different stories. And obviously I love that movie, so it just brings back a lot of nostalgia and happy feelings.
And what was your response to Splash Mountain being replaced with Tiana's Bayou Adventure?
I loved Splash Mountain. That actually, like my favorite thing growing up was going on Splash Mountain at night. And I always had a hard time getting my friends to go with me. Even in college, I would be like, let's go, come on, like last thing in the night. But anyway, so it's always been one of my favorite rides. But, something I love about Disney is they, are always seeking for ways to like make things new and improved and add a different touch and like grow with, time. And I think Walt Disney, when he talked about the parks, he said, it's never going to be finished. It's always going to be, renewing itself. So I haven't actually, here's a confession, I haven't actually been on the new ride. So it's the new version of it or whatever it may be. So it's always got a long line and I'm not a big line waiter. So I'm waiting until the hype dies down and checking out. But because I'm kind of a Disney nerd, I've already watched like online, YouTube,
Oh, those little
go-throughs or whatever it may be.
Since you've been going for a while, have you ever experienced a ride breaking down at Disney? And if not, which ride would you not ever want to get stuck on?
I've been broken down on countless rides, but probably the most memorable was when I was younger. I remember getting stuck on Pirates of the Caribbean. Ooh. And, where most rides, when you get broken down, and I'm sure even on Pirates of the Caribbean, if it gets that bad, there's a way to easily get you off the ride if they can't fix it. But I ended up getting stuck in, if Pirates of the Caribbean, as you're about to ascend from, the cave area or whatever it may be, there's like the little prison with that iconic where they're dangling the keys from the dog, and that's a good little dog or whatever it may be. So anyway, me and my friends were at Disneyland and we got stopped there, and it's in a horrible place in the ride, like not an easy place to get people up and off. And so we were in there for like, it felt like 30 minutes. It was probably like 5 minutes, but everything runs on a loop. So we sat there for like 30 minutes listening to these pirates talking to the dog like, that's a good little dog, and come on here. I mean, at that point, I was about to get up out of the boat and go get the keys and give it to the dog because it was driving us nuts. So, and then also just while we're on the topic of like broken down rides, what I've always dreamed of, but I've never been able to is, and I've had friends who have had this happen, but, Space Mountain, sometimes if there's like an error, they have to like turn on the lights and get you out. And so, a lot of people have gotten to ride it with the lights on. And so that's like my dream. One day I will get to ride Space Mountain with the lights on.
What is your favorite restaurant in one of the parks or in the downtown area?
Gosh, I think that's probably the hardest question that you have asked. Because the food is just so good at Disneyland. I mean, I love their food. And I'm always, I have my usual spots. It's kind of like a tie for me. If it's like more of a quick meal, like you can't go wrong with, on Main Street, the Plaza Inn, they have their fried chicken dinner. Fried chicken, mashed potatoes, vegetables. It's just so good. I always add Tabasco sauce to the chicken, which is always really good. And then if I have time to sit down, I really like the Lamplight Lounge, I think is what it's called. It used to be Ariel's Grotto over in California Adventure. And they have these lobster nachos that I just have been addicted to ever since I first had them. Like that restaurant has gone through several iterations. And so, every now and then, if I want to do something special, I get a reservation there and get my lobster nachos.
I'm sure there's Disney parks all over the world. Which one would you like to visit the most and why?
I've actually been to multiple Disney parks like throughout the world. And one of my favorites, I've been to Disney World, and I did the Animal Kingdom there, which was super awesome. Also been to Disneyland Paris, and Disneyland Paris was kind of a little bit of a letdown because it's just so small, but it's really beautiful. Like they spared no expense at making the park look amazing. But my dream is to go to Disney Tokyo Sea, mainly because that park is not like it's not technically owned by Disney, so they don't have to follow all the same regulations that like the other parks do. So they get to kind of do sometimes some cooler, more experimental stuff with their rides. And so that's the dream one day, Disney Tokyo Sea.
What are some differences you've noticed in the new animated Disney films versus the older ones?
Well, they're just not as good. I'm just kidding. No, I mean, I am so like, And you'll probably experience this. Everybody will experience whatever generation that they like first experienced Disney movies. But I'm just so partial to like those that I remember like seeing in the movie theaters. Like like I shared in that like from like the 90s and early 2000s. And also like when I was growing up, we didn't have streaming platforms and even like as I was growing up, just the introduction of like home video was happening. So like we didn't have like the movies like accessible like they are now. So we not only saw a lot of those movies in the theaters that were like coming out, but they were also re-releasing like the old ones from like the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And they'd have like a special showing that you would go see. So I actually saw a lot of the earlier Disney movies in the movie theater on those re-releases. But anyway, the newer animation, like I think it's fantastic, and I connect with it as best I can, but it has lost that nostalgia factor. I mean, particularly when they went away from the 2D animation. It's just you can't recreate that feeling, and so I'll watch it. I'll watch it, there are movies that I enjoy, but I'm still pretty partial to anything really early 2000s and earlier.
Since you've watched so many, in your opinion, which Disney character that you've watched has the best set of songs?
Being, a choir teacher, and, I've sung all my life, and, and obviously, when you're in high school or, middle school, elementary school, like, everybody loves singing Disney songs, and so, like, I'm partial to the songs that I remember singing, and, I really loved Hercules when it came out. I remember seeing Hercules in the movie theater. But I think back to my freshman year of high school, we did like a Disney-themed kind of like pop show, and I auditioned for a solo, and I did Go the Distance, and just because I love that movie and all the music, so definitely would have to say Hercules, and not only him having the best songs, but that movie I feel like has like some of the best music of any Disney movie.
All right, well, that was it. Thank you so much for coming.
You are so welcome.
Thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed getting a glimpse of Mr. Yoder's love of Disney, and we hope this inspired you to revisit the parks or watch a Disney movie. See you next time.